All right, folks, now I'm going to... Oh, blimey, I started shouting already, and, Now, I'm going to be telling you about one of the strongest suspects involved in the case. Now, if you're a budding ripperologist, where to get the ointment? Now, I'm talking about an amateur sleuth or detective who's still on the trail of Jack the Ripper. Now, can I tell you, even as I speak, no one knows for certain who Jack the Ripper is. Lots of people are trying, lots of people are trying, and lots of trying people. Now, they estimate this between around 74 to 100 suspects at the moment. Now, naturally, I should be going into each in detail. Should be finished by about 2 this morning. Now, I'll go through 3 or 4 of the stronger ones. Now, what makes this such a classic murder is the mysterious bits intertwine with the evidence itself. For instance, after 5 murders, they suddenly stopped as suddenly as they started. Now, the general contention is, after the 5th and final murder, this person, whoever he was, either committed suicide, went abroad, or even ended up in an asylum. Also, after the 2nd murder, her name was Annie Chapman, on the 8th of September 1888, a week after the 1st murder. When the doctors were examining her, they said whoever did this kind of ripping must have some kind of anatomical knowledge. In other words, after the first 2 murders, suspicion began to rest on people like doctors and surgeons, which is why I've called this particular suspect Gentleman Jack, because a doctor or surgeon's a gentleman. Not in this case, obviously. But you'll see how Montague Druitt fits a few of the clues as we go along. Montague Druitt, good old Monty. He was brought up down in Dorset, he was a middle-class chap. In fact, his father was a surgeon. In other words, he may have had some kind of crude anatomical knowledge. However, after he left Oxford University, he turned his back on the medical side of the family and he became a lawyer instead. Now, he didn't make any money being a lawyer. Should have run to California, shouldn't he? Anyway, he went on the other side of the river to a place called Blackheath, where he taught as a private tutor at an all-boys school there. 6 or 7 weeks after the 5th and final murder, a bloated body was dragged out of the Thames near Chiswick. It was Montague Druitt. Now, when his brother was looking through his belongings, he found he'd actually written a suicide note. And he said, since Friday, I felt I was going to be like Mother, and the best thing for me was to die. Who wants a mother like that, I ask you? Except for Norman Bates. No, he used to visit his mother down in Chiswick. She was in an asylum. She was a nutter, she was a loony, she was off her head. Maybe he felt the gene insanity had finally reached him. Maybe this is the reason why he was doing these dreadful killings. Now, what helps this idea of insanity along is they found in one of his back pockets a cheque for £50. Now, this was the amount he'd been paid off by the school he'd been working at because they'd given him the sack. Now, we don't know why they gave him the sack. We can presume they realised he was getting a bit too laddie, so they gave him the push. But there's another theory of this as well, that he wasn't given the sack from the school because of insanity, but because he was a latent homosexual. Now, this particular sort of theory says this: being a latent homosexual, he was a woman hater, which is why he did this dreadful killing. And also being in this all-boys school, because of some embarrassing impropriety, they had to release him. It also goes on to say this, that while he was at Oxford University, he joined a literary society, which in fact was a front for a group of gay men. Now, after they left university, went into various prominent positions in society and politics, this group found out, they don't ask me how, that one of their ex-members, excuse the pun, was indeed Jack the Ripper. And so they enticed him over the Chiswick Bridge and confronted him with what they knew. They said, look, Monty, you rotter, we know you're Jack the Ripper, you swine. And to realise that the press and the public get hold of the story, our careers could be ruined by association with scum such as yourself. So therefore, be a decent chap, you can put these rocks in your pocket. Balance precariously on this bridge. We'll give you a gentle shove into oblivion. Yes, he was pushed, he didn't jump at all. Load of old rubbish. Well, I thought I'd tell you about that theory. Some people believe it. What have we got so far then with Montague Druitt, one of the stronger suspects? Well, for a start, he died at the right time. 2 or 3 weeks after the 5th and final murder. His brother, or his father rather, was a surgeon. So he may have had some kind of anatomical knowledge. His cousin Lionel Druitt actually was a local as well. He actually was working in the East End Blood, he became a doctor, and he worked at the Minories, which is just literally parallel from where we are at the moment. In other words, Montague Druitt could have left his school in Blackheath, crossed over the Thames, done over these women, hid himself away at his cousins before returning to Blackheath. This marvellous teacher, this terrific cricketer, an all-round jolly good egg. Now, it just so happens that Lionel, his cousin, emigrated to Australia, and there was a newspaper article in a local rag there, and it said this: I know Jack the Ripper, he said. It turns out that Lionel was chatting to a landlord or something there. He said, oh, it's funny really, it's because my cousin, he's Jack the Ripper, you know. As one does imply soirees, you know. Now, those ripperologists who believe it's Montague Druitt sent loads of letters off to various parts of Australia to try and trace that original newspaper article. But did they find it? Not on your Nelly, came to a total blank. So where's that leave us then with Montague Druitt, one of the strongest suspects? Well, all that I've told you is circumstantial. There's nothing actually to link him with any of the murders as far as real evidence is concerned at all. On the positive side, he was one of 3 or 4 main suspects. Now let's face it, all doctors, lawyers, surgeons, why did they pick him here? It's a good point. The merest hint we have is that maybe his family, believing he was Jack the Ripper, actually took the piece off. Mind you, what it doesn't seem to fit is the typical psychological profile of a serial killer. In other words, he wasn't Mr. Loner, he wasn't Mr. Inadequate, he wasn't Mr. Nobody, he was outgoing, he was well-liked, he was a jolly good egg. Mind you, somebody the other day put it, yes, what about Ted Bundy? He was a socialite, look how many he murdered. Of course, get someone to spoil it for you, quite frankly, didn't we? Now, what we're going to do is go up here, returning right and right again. We're going to Mitre Square. And it's in Mitre Square I'm going to be telling you about 2 murders that happened on the same night. Shocking stuff. So we're going up here, turning right and right again, please.